Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and today I have the honor to review the Miltech Simulations Mirage 2000C. Now, it is the Mirage 2000, but they don't call it like that officially. They call their add-on the M2KC. You can figure what that stands for. Probably because Mirage isn't too enthusiastic about offering licenses. So for the purpose of this video we'll call it the M2KC, but you know now which aircraft type this actually is. And it is the first 4th generation fighter aircraft in our Microsoft Flight Simulator that actually has some weapons simulation to it. And it is quite an enjoyable one to fly. But before we get into flying it, let's go ahead and have a quick look at some of the external model and some of the texturing art. So it does come with quite a lot of liveries. Most importantly, you've got the French and the Indian Air Force, which are primary operators of the aircraft in the real world. But then you also have a Ukrainian Air Force livery, which is the one that we are using over here, which in my opinion just looks the best on the entire aircraft. Now, what's the deal? Why all of a sudden Ukraine? Well, because France did announce that they are going to give Mirages to Ukraine and train their pilots to use them. And, well, this is a possibility of what they may look like. Overall, in my opinion, a good looking model and a fantastic looking aircraft as well. But for now, let's jump into the cockpit and have a look around the cockpit as well. You might be surprised to see that we've got a 4th generation fighter over here, which still has a lot of analog dials. But there is actually a reason for that. For a certain period in time, fighter aircraft manufacturers built their aircraft with steam gauges because they thought they were less susceptible to electromagnetic pulses. Now, that changed over time. Newer Mirages do have full electronic equipment, but believe me, this one has pretty much everything we need for having a lot of fun with the aircraft. Now, a lot of these switches are modeled, but Miltech themselves say that the M2KC is a bit of an imagination since there is no official cooperation with any aircraft manufacturer, and I tend to add the typical any similarities with anything existing in the real life are purely coincidental. You've heard that before in movies. Alright, so let's go ahead and have a little bit of fun. First things first, we are going to close the canopy over here, which removes the ladder, and then we get the canopy coming down. You can see we also do have some pitot covers and stuff in place. We can remove that using the switches that we find down here and down here. And now all the covers are removed, and now our aircraft is basically ready to go. Canopy is closing. And here we go. Now the chocks have been removed and all the pitot and engine covers have been removed. The aircraft is fully compatible with Flight Simulator 2020 and 2024. However, you cannot remove any of those covers using click spots, but you can only remove them using those switches in the cockpit for the time being. Alright, so let's jump right into the aircraft and start powering it up. So, battery is coming on, that one's coming on, and the external power is coming on. And then we can turn on our lights, so we'll turn on the beacon and the other two, and then, well, next up we can already start the engine. So let's turn on the fuel vent, the fuel master switch, and then we can hit the starter switch. Now, that basically initiates the engine start. There is nothing further we need to do. The rest of the engine start is going to be fully automatic. While the engine start is in progress, let's go ahead and start our IRS alignment, which can take a little bit of time here. So we'll put the IRS into the align position, prepare position number 1, and that is kind of the one where we enter the present position as well. So we are at 15.13.0 north, so that's going to be 5013.0 insert, and the east coordinate is 309.6. And those of you who are very good with these kind of things will probably know by now where we are, but You are going to find out in a few moments. So the IRS alignment is now in progress. We can see the timer counting down, and once that one reaches 0, our IRS is basically ready to use. While that's in progress, let's go ahead and switch it over to the main screen, and over here we can already enter our destination coordinates, and we are going to fly right to the Eiffel Tower, and we're going to practice a little bombing run there using pretty much the largest target I can find in France because of my poor targeting skills. So the Eiffel Tower is located at 4151.3, 4851.3 north and 217.4 east, and that's now selected. So now we can select destination 02, and now the IRS is going to bring us right towards that point. The engine generator on, external power unit off, and then our engine start is completed. Let's power up the radar, and that one also has a pretty neat functionality. If we click the valve button up here, we can use that in order to actually load up weapons on our aircraft. So today we're going to practice a bombing run using Mark 82 bombs. And I want to fit 4 of those underneath my aircraft. Alright, so that's now done. The rest of this one just goes right back to the radar. Then we can tune our radios, and we'll use 122-800 for that one, and then we'll also use 121-500 like that. And now we can see our frequencies up here: 1228 active, 1215 on standby. The QNH this morning is 1030, giving us roughly 250 feet-ish. We're gonna cruise on the first sector at 40,000 feet. On the second one, or on the way back, we are really gonna take the aircraft up high, but that's our basic setup. Now down here, you can select terrain mode on our radar, and like that we now have the terrain displayed right up here. Alright, and that's our basic aircraft setup for the time. Now let's see about our alignment status. If you go back to the status page, you can see it's actually finished, so let's switch this right over into the nav mode. And then, let's see, back into the main display. So, bearing 203, 88.3 nautical miles, and we can also make this one visible up here on our HSI. So if you select the second nav down here, that's the INS navigation. We see our bearing, we see the distance, and that's pretty much it. So, very easy going. Then, taxi light on, no-still steering on, park and brake released, boy I love that lever, and then off we go for our practice run. Right, brake check, looking good. So you might be wondering, where did we get this very well looking Air Force base from? And this one is Corsair Air Force Base, which you can buy in a bundle together with the M2KC from Miltech Simulations. They also do offer Lee Air Force Base in India, since India also is one of the major customers of the real-world Mirage 2000. Now while we taxi out, let's have a quick look at our heads-up display, since it is rather different from what you're used to from your typical American fighter. After all, the French always have their specialties, do they? So, on the top left, we've actually got our airspeed indication, so currently 14 knots. Below that, you have your current Mach number. I think the compass is clear, and on the top right, you've got your altitude. Now, the altitude is quite interesting, as you can actually change that around. So right now we're on barometric, but if you select this switch over here to H, you get your radio altitude shown up there, and select H is even nicer. That one lets you select which level you want to see as 0. That's quite cool when you actually use the aircraft during training exercises where you want to simulate a hard deck that you don't want to go below. That way you can change your altimeter reading to basically show 0 when you reach the hard deck. Quite cool. But for today's mission, for the departure at least, we're going to go over to the barometric altitude. Alright, so we are clear on the approach and we are clear on the left side, lining up on runway 28. So landing light on, taxi light off. Everything is clear. Very, very good. So, lined up, ready to go. Very quick check outside to show you what it looks like. So we do have 4 bombs fitted to the aircraft for our mission. Be aware that those are only available if you purchase the aircraft outside of Marketplace. If you get it inside Marketplace, then you will not have that weaponry, since there are restrictions in place. Alright, so think we are ready to go. Let's do a very quick flight control check down here to be sure that we have no bad surprises waiting for us. But this is looking very good. Then 3, 2, 1. Full power. Afterburners are on as indicated over here. And then let's go. So we have 80 knots. 120 rotate. Alright, that delta wing needs a little bit of convincing it to get airborne, but it doesn't have any flaps to it, so no surprises there. Delta wings aren't known exactly for their low speed characteristics. The gear is up. Let's accelerate to 450 knots in level flight, and here we are, 450, pulling up. And then we can also start that left-hand turn towards Paris. So, Mach 0.99. We don't really want to go supersonic at this point yet. But look at that lovely angle in the climb. The M2KC has a thrust-to-weight ratio of about 0.7, so it can't go vertical. But as you can see, those 60 degrees angle of climb are quite impressive, aren't they? Alright. So, 30,000 feet, 1 minute 26 after setting takeoff thrust. Sounds quite okay to me. Pitching down slowly and shallowly here. We want to go up to 40,000 feet after all. But I don't want to pull too many negative G's here. So here we go, basically in 40,000. And it took us 1 minute and 52 seconds to get it up here. And that is with 4 bombs of payload and full internal fuel tanks. Alright, since we are now up here, let's go ahead and turn on the autopilot. So autopilot on, alt select on. That way it's maintaining 40,000. And then we can go ahead and navigate towards our destination. We do have a heading buck down here which we can use. That one. So here it is. Then let's activate nav mode, which basically follows the heading buck. Alright, on the heads-up display you can now see... On the heads-up display you can now see that marker over here, which is the marker to our IRS destination point. And down here you can see the distance, so it's now 70 nautical miles towards that marker. And that's your basic heads-up display. Now, I did keep the burners on because I want to show you how fast the aircraft can go right up here. We're now at Mach 1.5, accelerating. And I think we're probably going to run not into the Mach number limit, which is Mach 2.2, the highest permissible on the M2KC. But I think we're going to run into the limit for the indicated airspeed, which is 750 knots. So we'll probably reach 750 indicated before reaching Mach 2.2. But just to show you how fast we're actually going, let's have a quick look down at the INS display and have a look at that. Ground speed 1,100 knots. Time to target 3 minutes. And that is for 56 nautical miles. Right, here we go. 750. Turning the burners off now. So we are slightly decelerating again, but 1,100 knots ground speed is quite impressive, isn't it? Alright, well, we're heading towards the target. Let's go ahead and prepare our weapons for engaging. So we'll arm the master's weapon switch, we'll select our bombs down here, and now they are on standby, and now they are ready to use. And you can see that our heads-up display is actually showing us some of the target information as well now. Amongst others, down here we see which type of ordnance is selected, we see our G-forces, and we see our angle of attack, though I'm not sure that one is actually fully simulated just yet. Alright, on the lower right, we want to release all 4 bombs at the same time, and the distance between them when they hit the ground should be 20 meters. And with that, we have basically prepared our weapons for usage. Now you can see, since I disengaged the burners, the aircraft has slowly decelerated, but we are still easily flying supersonic up here, which is quite cool. That engine is really powerful. Alright, a little bit of mathematics. We're in 40,000 feet, we're now 30 miles from the target, so that's pretty much a 9-degree descent, so I suppose we are going to start our descent onto the target now. So, autopilot off. Let's turn around, 12 degrees descent, and here we go. I'm just going to keep my engine at maximum thrust, simulating that we want to make a quick attack run over here, and then fly right back to our base. On the way back to the base after the attack, we are then going to explore the aircraft's maximum speed and altitude capabilities. So for now, I'm just keeping full thrust as we're descending down. We need to keep the speed below 750 knots, but that shall not be too much of a problem. As long as we don't run the burners, that is. We could always engage the afterburners. Let me do that for a second to show you what's happening then. So burners on in 3, 2, 1 now. And look at that. Just look at the speed indicator down here, rising rapidly. Reaching 750 now, so let's go ahead and reduce that speed again by a little bit. Now 13 miles from target, so got to do a little steeper descent here. And I just want to use that little hole in the clouds down here to ensure that we're getting down slightly to the overspeed, and we passed out from G-lock. Come on, bring us back. Here we go. Right, level again in 10,000. Slightly off target. Let's pull the thrust. So we're now 6 miles out, 10,000 feet. Let's continue that way down. And here we go. Paris in sight. That's our target. We're a little bit fast. Let's pull a couple G's in order to reduce that airspeed. And make sure we don't pass out over Paris. That wouldn't be too good. Alright, this is better. So, target in sight. Whoa, that was a little bit too close. Tiny bit too fast, so we couldn't release the bombs just yet. Let's make 180 back. Alright, that's our target. Then let's go wings level over here. Let's go a little bit further forward. And here's our release point. Bombs away. So, putting on the burners. And the look back reveal. We hit just in front of the target. You can see the smoke coming out of the ground over there, which is a pretty nice feature. Well, well. We're still practicing, Alright, so we can turn off our weapon system over here. Then let's select our base back as destination, so direct waypoint 1, that's bearing 023, and distance 85 nautical miles. Now we're going to use our way back for a little practice run here to see what our aircraft can do in terms of altitude and airspeed capabilities. So we're climbing now at 450 knots, slightly reducing speed because I want to get it subsonic here. The official published service ceiling for the aircraft is roughly 56,000 feet. Unofficially, it'll probably be able to fly quite a bit faster and higher. So let's give this one a try. I'll put it into a bit of a descent in order to increase our airspeed so that we can actually reach Mach 2.2. And once we've reached that speed, we're going to get it right up to its service ceiling at 56,000 and maybe a little bit higher. But first things first, we gotta accelerate a bit so that all of this is gonna work out. The challenge is always to get it through roundabout Mach 1.3. Once you're above that, you're pretty much safe. But at Mach 1.3, you've got the strongest wave drag from your aircraft piercing the sound barrier. Alright, we're at Mach 1 right now. Let's pitch down a little bit. And now we've just got to let it accelerate here until we reach about 30,000 feet-ish. The important thing is to get it through Mach 1.3, which we have now, and to get it to around Mach 1.5, 1.6 or so. When we reach that, we can pull it back into the climb, and then we basically don't have any problems with the drag of the aircraft anymore and can accelerate to wherever we want to be. So here we go, Mach 1.7. Then let's put it into a nice climb. Here we go. Very nice. So Mach 1.9 almost, 1.9. You can see how we are now basically just through all that drag, and now the aircraft's accelerating really, really nicely. So let's bring it up to 57,000 or 56,000, then maybe a bit higher, let's say 65. Could imagine that the real service ceiling's probably closer to that. So watch the speed, Mach 1.97, and we're still climbing at a very good rate. Let's see it down here. The vertical speed indicator is stuck right there on the 6,000 mark. Alright, we've passed the official service ceiling. I'm gonna level it off at flight level 650, 65,000 feet. So let's start pitching it down a little bit here. This is now using a lot of fuel flying that fast up here, so don't really want to overdo things, but here we go. Mach 2, 64,200 feet. Lovely. That's exactly how I like it. The only thing I don't like is the fuel usage, which is rather incredible up here. Remember, we departed with 3,600 kilos per tank, and now down to 1,200. But we're only 30 miles out from our base, so let's go ahead. Have a quick view on the outside. Just watch this. That's stunning, isn't it? Really, really stunning. And this is what I like best. You move to the front while flying supersonic, you don't hear any kind of sound. Then you move to the back again into the shockwave, and you have sounds again. I really like that. I really do like how Asobo simulated that. Right then, back to the flight deck. We have 20 miles to run, 65,000 feet. Let's turn off the burners. We're at Mach 2.15. I am happy with that. And then, idle power. Let's go. Now look at how steeply I'm descending the aircraft, and how the indicated airspeed is just really rising up over here. Going through 750, so yes, I am kinda overspeeding it again. I know that, I know that. I'm gonna pay. That's fine. Alright, son, was nice to see you today, but for now, back into the clouds. The plane can fly IFR just about perfectly, but of course flying IFR in a fighter consists more of following radar vectors than following routes and stuff like you do them in, you know, your average airline. So we're 10 miles out from the base. We can actually see our base right up there. And I gotta say, this was a huge lot of fun flying this mission. Remember, we've just covered 160 nautical miles within the last 15 minutes. So that was really cool. For now though, time to prepare for our landing. The M2KC doesn't have any flaps. It does have slats, however, which are operated automatically, so we don't need to worry about those. So let's quickly go over the checklist. The weapon system is secure, and the lights are on. So we're going to use the radio altimeter here for our way down, so let's activate that. Now our altimeter shows radio altitude. Makes life a little bit easier on the approach, so that we don't have to bother with any QNH and stuff like that. That's actually a really good mode for attacking as well, as it enables you to fly anywhere without having to know the QNH of the area. Because I have a feeling that most enemies aren't just going to give you the QNH, you know, for free. Maybe if you turn on your radar in exchange so that they know where you are and how to hit you? Maybe. Alright, so here we are again, down at Cambrai Air Force Base. Let's go ahead and fly into the pattern, overflying the field just above 1,000 feet over here, just in case there's any departing traffic. 300 knots right now, and we're still in idle thrust for pretty much the entire descent. Alright, let's make the base turn. You do have speed brakes on the aircraft, however, those speed brakes are not controllable with an axis or something the like. It's just extend or retract. Pretty much the same way it is in the real aircraft. You can see there's nothing down here to actually control them in an axis. It's just either fully extended or fully retracted. Makes it rather interesting to fly those approaches, because the aircraft is a rather slippery one, and over the course of flying the plane I found that whenever I need to lose some speed rapidly, the best thing to do is just to pull a couple G's like that, because that is gonna reduce your speed quickly. Now we can get the gear down, and once the gear is down, it's very easy to lose altitude. It does have a lot of drag with the gear down. Okay then, right base, runway 28, let's make our final turn. Let's put the HUD into the approach mode, even though it is rather difficult to see for the time being. If we move a little bit further up front, then you can see down here at the 4-degree line we have some markers now, and basically those are what we want to fly. So we do want to fly a 4-degree descent there. Now just put the aircraft flight path symbol in there, and that's basically how we fly those approaches in the Mirage. It's just that it's rather difficult to see, unfortunately. Typical approach speed around 140, 150 knots, depending on the weather conditions. You will see that flaring the plane is actually rather interesting, because if you do flare it and pull the power like I'm doing now, you can see you're kinda immediately getting a stall there. And touchdown. And here we are. So, slowly getting it back to the center line. Well, that was a fantastic flight. I did take a little while to learn the aircraft. It took me like 3 days or so, where I invested like 1 or 2 hours each to learn all the different systems, like how does the autopilot work, how does the INS work, how do the navigation systems work, how do the weapon systems work. But it is a lot of fun to learn it, especially because of its rather special flight characteristics due to the delta wing design, without any flaps or anything on it. So, pretty cool aircraft, lots of fun to fly, that much I can absolutely assure you. Alright, so that was just shy of 20 minutes in the air, covering an attack run over almost 90 nautical miles each way. And now, since we're back on the ground, taxi light on, landing light off. And the radar is coming off already as well. So we did burn quite a bit of fuel during that session. You can see going down here we now have around 2,000 kilos of fuel in the tanks. We departed with 6,000, so we burned 4,000 kilograms of fuel for this little adventure. Alright, let's go ahead and park it up. And then we can do our final verdict after shutting the M2KC down. It isn't all that easy to maneuver over here. I do have to admit that. You gotta go very slow in order to control the nose wheel precisely, but may or may not be realistic. I have no idea, never flown a fighter jet. Even though it would surely be interesting to do one day. But for now, here we are. Let's turn over to the left, into the parking. The fuel truck is already here in order to refuel the aircraft for the next mission. But that shall be for another pilot while we are conducting the debriefing. And here we are. So, stopping right over here. Nose wheel steering disengaged. Parking brake is set. So then we can turn the INS off. Like that. Down here everything is basically off. Taxi lights coming off. Approach mode is deactivated again. Alright, then let's cut the fuel. And here we go. Okay, ground power unit is connected, engine generator is off, and that is it, my friends. So, the engine has basically run down. Well, and here we are. That's all I can offer you. The Mirage 2000C, or M2KC as Miltech calls it, probably licensing, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video. In my opinion, a huge lot of fun to fly. Now, is it study level simulation? Certainly not, but it's a great lot of fun to fly. It does feature some weapon system in that you have unguided bombs, you do have missiles, and you do have tracers for your guns, which are fairly interesting to use. That's what I can say for sure. Overall, a pretty neat package coming at a price point of $29.99 US, excluding sales tax. And there are some very nice bundles available with Cambrai or Lee Air Force Base, which are like the two major bases from which the aircraft is operated in the real world, that you can grab on the checkout of the purchase. In my opinion, a really interesting aircraft to fly, lots of fun. I can't say how realistic it is, but it surely is a lot of fun to fly. And with that, I'd like to thank Miltech Simulations for providing my review copy of the M2KC. And I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. Be sure to leave your feedback in the comments underneath the video. I'm very much looking forward to them. Like, comment and subscribe, and if you really love what I'm doing on this channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one.